When the Silver Cross of Castile was finally raised over the Alhambra in 1492, it marked the end of a story. It was the final chapter for nearly 800 years of Islamic rule in the Iberian Peninsula. The fall of Granada was not a sudden event, however. It was a slow, graceful, and often tragic decline. This was the story of a kingdom holding on, a candle flickering bravely against a rising wind. Long before the last sultan, Boabdil, handed over the keys to his city, his ancestors fought to keep that flame alive. This story is about them. It is about the final great sultans who presided over Granada's golden twilight, a time of incredible danger and breathtaking beauty. We will journey back to the late 14th century and the early 15th century. This was a time when the Emirate of Granada was the last Muslim state left in Spain. It was a small, mountainous kingdom clinging to the southern coast, surrounded on all sides by the powerful and ever-expanding Christian kingdom of Castile. Its survival was a miracle of diplomacy, defiance, and sheer will. To understand the end, we must first understand those who came before. We will look at the lives of Yusuf II, the turbulent reign of a brother who came between them, Muhammad VII, and Yusuf III. They were the men who steered the ship of state through treacherous waters. Their world was one of constant negotiation, of paying tribute to a stronger neighbor while trying to maintain their own dignity and independence. It was a world of palace intrigue, where brothers plotted against brothers, and powerful viziers could make or unmake a sultan. Yet, amidst this political turmoil, Granada blossomed. Its artisans, poets, and architects created works of art that still leave us breathless today. The story of these sultans is not just one of battles and treaties. It is also the story of the magnificent Alhambra, of intricate poetry, and of a culture that shone its brightest just as its sun was beginning to set. The Nasrid dynasty was the last and longest reigning Muslim dynasty in Spain. Founded in the 13th century by Muhammad I, they carved out a kingdom from the remnants of Al-Andalus. Their capital, Granada, was nestled in a fertile plain at the foot of the snow-capped Sierra Nevada mountains. This location was both a blessing and a curse. The mountains provided a natural defense, but the kingdom was small and isolated. Its only connection to the wider Muslim world was through the sea, with the ports of North Africa. To the north, the land border met the formidable Kingdom of Castile, whose ultimate goal was the complete reconquest of the peninsula. To sit on the Nasrid throne was to occupy one of the most dangerous seats of power in the medieval world. The Sultan had to be a master of many arts. He had to be a clever diplomat, playing Christian neighbors and playing North African neighbors. He needed to be a shrewd military commander, ready to defend his borders at a moment's notice. He also had to be a vigilant ruler at home, because the greatest threat often came from within the walls of his own palace. The Nasrid court was famous for its factions and rivalries. Ambitious relatives, powerful ministers, all were always waiting for a moment of weakness. The political situation was incredibly complex. Granada's survival depended on a delicate balancing act. The sultans often paid large sums of tribute, called parias, to the Castilian crown. This was essentially protection money. It bought them temporary peace and stopped Castile from launching a full-scale invasion. Yusuf II came to the throne in 1391. He was not a natural warrior like many of his ancestors. He was a thoughtful and cultured man, more interested in poetry, science, and the arts than in the battlefield. He inherited a kingdom enjoying a period of relative peace thanks to the diplomatic efforts of his father, Muhammad V. Yusuf II's main goal was to maintain this peace. He understood that Granada was too weak to challenge Castile directly. His strategy was one of caution and conciliation. He renewed the truce with Castile and continued to pay the tribute that kept their armies at bay. He preferred the quiet negotiation of the diplomat to the loud clash of swords. However, peace was a luxury hard to hold on to. Yusuf II's reign was far from quiet. His own court was a nest of vipers. He had to contend with powerful ministers and ambitious family members who disagreed with his peaceful policies. Some believed he was too soft, that paying tribute was a sign of weakness. His own son, Muhammad, was particularly impatient. This young prince, who would later become Muhammad VII, believed in a more aggressive approach towards Castile. This created a deep rift within the royal family, a source of constant tension that undermined the Sultan's authority and made his delicate diplomatic work even harder. Despite these challenges, Yusuf II tried to be a just and fair ruler. He was known for his piety and his concern for the welfare of his subjects. He found solace in the general life, the beautiful summer palace and country estate next to the Alhambra. He took a personal interest in the cultivation of rare plants and flowers. This image of the Sultan finding peace among his gardens offers a poignant contrast to the turbulent political world he navigated every day. But the storm was gathering. The pressure from his son's faction grew stronger. In 1392, just a year into his reign, Yusuf II was forced to deal with a crisis. His ambitious son orchestrated a plot that led to the death of one of the Sultan's most trusted advisors. This event shattered the delicate balance of the court. Yusuf II was deeply shaken, a man of peace forced to rule in a time that demanded war. His reign lasted only 1 year. He died in 1392, some historians believe under suspicious circumstances, possibly poisoned by those who wished to see his more aggressive son on the throne. The court of Yusuf II was a place of dazzling contrasts. It was a center of high culture, poetry flourished, music flourished, yet it was also a place of deadly political games. Yusuf II was a great patron of the arts. He surrounded himself with the finest poets, scholars, and musicians. The most famous of these was Ibn Zamrak, who served as his vizier, or chief minister. Ibn Zamrak was not just a politician. He was considered one of the greatest poets of Al-Andalus. His beautiful verses were famously inscribed onto the walls of the Alhambra, including the Court of the Lions. His words turned stone and plaster into a living poem. This patronage was not just personal, it was a political statement. By fostering a vibrant cultural life, the Nasrid Sultans projected an image of power, sophistication, legitimacy. The beauty of the Alhambra and the elegance of its court poetry were meant to impress foreign ambassadors and remind their own subjects of the glory of the dynasty, a form of soft power. However, poetry and politics were deeply entangled. The relationship between Yusuf II and his poet vizier, Ibn Zamrak, shows this clearly. For a time, they were close allies. Ibn Zamrak's eloquent diplomacy helped negotiate with Castile, but the court was full of jealousy. Courtiers grew envious of Ibn Zamrak's power and influence. They began to plot, whispering suspicions into the Sultan's ear, accusing him of being too powerful and of harboring ambitions for the throne. This climate of suspicion led to a tragic end. In 1393, shortly after Yusuf II's death, assassins broke into Ibn Zamrak's home and murdered him while he was reportedly reading the Quran. His death was a brutal reminder. No one was safe in the Nasrid court. The same court that produced timeless poetry could also commit shocking violence. This was the dangerous and dazzling world the Nasrid Sultans had to master. And in that world, the winds of change were rising toward a brief and brutal reign. When Yusuf II died in 1392, his ambitious son Muhammad VII seized the throne. He wasted no time. He pushed aside his younger brother Yusuf, who was the rightful heir according to their father's will. Muhammad VII was the complete opposite of his father. Yusuf II was cautious. Yusuf II was diplomatic. Muhammad was aggressive and impatient. He rejected the policy of paying tribute to Castile. He saw it as a humiliation and believed Granada should assert its strength. His reign, which lasted from 1392 to 1408, marked a sharp and dangerous break from the past. It was a period defined by conflict and confrontation. Muhammad VII immediately abandoned the truces that his father and grandfather had worked so hard to maintain. He began launching raids, known as razzias, into Castilian territory, believing a show of force would make Castile respect Granada's power. For a short time, this strategy seemed to work. Castile was itself in a period of internal weakness, with a young king on its throne. Muhammad VII was able to take advantage of this instability, forming alliances with rebellious Castilian nobles and even with Portugal. However, this aggressive policy was a huge gamble, and it ultimately backfired. While Castile was temporarily weak, it was still a giant compared to tiny Granada. Muhammad VII's provocation stirred a hornet's nest. Castile had stabilized its internal politics and was ready to respond. They saw Muhammad VII not as a strong opponent, but as a reckless ruler who had broken the peace. In 1406, Castile launched a major military campaign against Granada. The Castilian army was powerful and well organized. The war was a disaster for Granada. The Castilian forces laid siege to and captured several important border towns, most notably the strategic fortress of Zahara in 1407. These losses weakened Granada's defenses and brought the reality of war home to its people. Muhammad VII's aggressive gamble had failed. He had provoked a powerful enemy and lost precious territory. Facing military defeat and growing opposition at home, his reign came to an abrupt end. He died in 1408. His exiled younger brother Yusuf returned and claimed the throne that should have been his all along. It was like a calm dawn after a violent storm. He was the younger brother of the warlike Muhammad VII. When his brother seized power, Yusuf had been forced into exile to protect his life. He spent years away from the court, waiting for his chance. When he finally returned, he inherited a kingdom in crisis, a losing war, shrinking borders, and an empty treasury. The people were weary of conflict. They longed for the peace and stability shattered by Muhammad VII's reckless policies. Yusuf III was very different from his brother, more like his grandfather, Yusuf II. Thoughtful, pragmatic. He understood the value of diplomacy. His first priority was to end the disastrous war with Castile. He immediately sent envoys to negotiate a truce. He knew Granada could not win a direct military confrontation. The only way to survive was to return to negotiation and pursue accommodation. He was willing to make concessions, willing to pay tribute in exchange for peace. This was not weakness, but wisdom. He was willing to do what was necessary. His diplomatic efforts were successful. In 1410, he signed a new truce with Castile, ending the fighting and granting a respite. With the threat lifted, Yusuf turned to internal matters, healing divisions, rebuilding the economy. He was known for his sense of justice and efforts to rule fairly. He sought to restore the authority of the Sultan weakened by strife. A small detail reveals his character. Unlike his brother who usurped the throne, Yusuf was a devoted family man. He ensured his sons were well educated and kept them away from the dangerous politics of the court, shaping a stable line of succession. This focus on family and stability shows his desire for lasting peace within the palace. His reign, until 1417, was a period of recovery and renewed cultural brilliance. Yusuf III was, above all, a master diplomat. He understood that for Granada to survive, it needed to be clever, not just strong. His foreign policy sought a delicate equilibrium. He knew he could not defeat Castile on the battlefield, so he had to outmaneuver them in the courts of diplomacy, using truces as his most important tool. He renewed peace with Castile multiple times. These truces were not permanent, but they bought precious years of stability, allowing Granada to recover and prosper without the constant threat of invasion. Paying tribute was a key part of this strategy. While his brother saw it as humiliation, Yusuf III saw it as practical necessity, a price worth paying for peace. The gold sent to Castile was an investment in survival. He skillfully exploited moments of Castilian weakness, rebellions, wars with Aragon, strengthening his position when Castile's attention was elsewhere. Beyond Castile, Yusuf maintained strong ties with the Marinid Sultanate in Morocco. North Africa was Granada's lifeline, a source of trade, military support, and cultural exchange. He exchanged ambassadors, gifts, and letters with rulers in Fez. This alliance served as a crucial counterweight to Castile's power, creating a strategic triangle that Yusuf managed with great skill. Diplomacy also hinged on personal relationships. He cultivated a reputation as reliable and trustworthy in Christian and Muslim sources alike. When he made a promise, other rulers believed him. That trust allowed him to de-escalate conflicts and resolve disputes that might otherwise lead to war. Through patient, skillful diplomacy, he gave Granada almost a decade of peace, a remarkable achievement in a volatile era. He was a builder of bridges, not walls. While Yusuf III focused heavily on diplomacy and peace, he did not neglect the great palace city of the Alhambra. Like his ancestors, he understood it was the heart of the kingdom and a powerful symbol of Nasrid prestige. Each sultan was expected to add their own touch. Yusuf III's main contribution was the construction of a magnificent new palace in the northern part of the complex, a palace that sadly no longer exists today. It was demolished in later centuries to make way for other buildings. Descriptions from the time tell us it was among the most splendid parts of the Alhambra, standing where the Palace of Charles V and its gardens are now. Chroniclers, like a visiting Castilian ambassador, were amazed by its beauty. They described vast halls decorated with shimmering tiles, intricate plasterwork, and colorful paintings. The palace was surrounded by lush gardens, fruit trees, fragrant flowers, running water from elegant fountains. A paradise on earth, a testament to Granada's artisans and the refined taste of its sultan. Building such grandeur during recovery showed the resilience of the Nasrid state. It was residence and, more importantly, a statement of confidence. Granada was not in terminal decline. It remained a vibrant center of wealth and culture, projecting power and stability to subjects and visitors alike. The palace embodied the peace and prosperity his diplomacy had brought. Though the main structure is gone, traces remain. The Torre de las Damas, its beautiful portico, and the pool it faces are thought to be part of the complex he developed. Stand there today, and you can still feel the tranquility and elegance he sought to create. His legacy is poignant, a reminder of lost beauty, a ghost palace speaking to a brief, shining moment of peace and artistic achievement before the final gathering storm. The period from Yusuf II to Yusuf III was a time of incredible cultural vitality in Granada, despite political instability. The heartbeat was the court, but its influence spread throughout the kingdom. Trade was essential. Granada was famous for silk. Mulberry trees fed silkworms. Weavers produced colorful patterned textiles prized across Europe and North Africa. Trade brought wealth, funding diplomatic efforts and artistic projects. Beyond silk, Granada excelled in fine crafts. Lusterware pottery with metallic sheen, metalwork, leatherwork, and armorers, a skilled artisan class supporting courtly high culture. Education flourished. The main mosque's madrasa nurtured theology, law, mathematics, astronomy, and medicine. Rulers like Yusuf II and Yusuf III patronized scholars, valuing knowledge and learning. Poetry remained the highest literary form. Poets like Ibn Zamrak were celebrities, their verses recited in palaces and squares, giving beauty and meaning amid uncertainty. Common life differed from palace life, tied to seasons and the land. Farmers worked fields, merchants tended shops, their lives shaped by sultanic policy. During Muhammad VII's wars, they faced high taxes and raids. Under Yusuf III's peace, they gained security and prosperity. The Sultan's reigns touched all, from the Grand Vizier in the Alhambra to the humble silk weaver in the Albaycin. The story of Granada's long and beautiful sunset, Yusuf II, Muhammad VII, Yusuf III. Their reigns reveal impossible choices in a kingdom living on borrowed time. They stood between the golden age of their ancestors and the fall less than a century later. Yusuf II, the scholar, Yusuf III, the diplomat. They chose the path of peace, using tribute and treaties as a shield to preserve their kingdom and let its culture blossom. They bought time, and with that time, created enduring art and architecture. In contrast, Muhammad VII chose defiance. His aggressive policies, born of pride and impatience, brought war and loss, a cautionary tale highlighting the wisdom of his father and brother. When Granada fell in 1492, the world lost a unique, vibrant kingdom. But the legacy of its last great sultans was not erased. It was cast in stone and in the plaster of the Alhambra. It lives in poetry carved into its walls. Yusuf II and Yusuf III were guardians of this legacy, protecting the flame of Al-Andalus, shielding it from the winds of war for as long as they could. Their efforts left a treasure for all humanity, final stewards of a fading dream, facing history's tide with dignity, intelligence, and devotion to culture. The story of Granada is about how long and how beautifully it stood. The jewel of Al-Andalus may have fallen, but its light was never extinguished.